Celestial Sun Lore, Chapter 4, The Forge World of Eldia. Alec Elric, the Primarch of the Celestial Suns, had lived a life full of lies and suffering due to the machinations of the Chaos God of Change, Tzeentch. Since the time of Elric's gestation pod cracking, Tzeentch had left his touch upon the Primarch, causing illusions and nightmares to plague him, with each vision plunging his psyche deeper and deeper into the depths of darkness. It was Tzeentch's schemes that placed Elric upon the planet of Kioshavor, which was already under his rule via the Council of Three. The events that transpired upon Kioshavor literally broke Elric both mentally and physically. Despair swallowed the Primarch at seeing his homeworld and people die before him. At the reveal of the Council of Three being a demonic follower of Tzeentch, his mental fortitude shattered. All he ever knew was a lie. He was used as a pawn, and all his accomplishments were orchestrated by Tzeentch. To try and cope with this overwhelming realization of his uselessness and loss of free will, Alec Elric materialized a second personality, a more ruthless and sadistic side. Even though the Emperor of Mankind knew of Tzeentch's puppet strings upon Elric, he still allowed his son to lead the 11th Legion as their Primarch. Elric fully pledged himself towards accomplishing the Emperor's goal, the unification of mankind. This would be the foundation for Elric to stand upon and rebuild himself. Meanwhile, deep within the dark corridors of the Crystal Labyrinth, the Architect of Fate laughed as he thought to himself that everything is going all according to plan. Throughout the Great Crusade's early years, the Emperor couldn't ignore the duality of Elric. Due to his traumatic experiences at witnessing his people's demise, Elric and the Celestial Suns liberated hundreds of human civilizations from the rule of Xenos, and as such, he was called the Hope of Humanity and the Light of the Imperium, while in reality he was still recovering from his despair, and he was hiding the darkness of his dual personalities. Most of the time, Elric was a calm, collected, and stoic tactician, but when his other persona took over, he would become a crazed man, and he would lash out in fits of burning rage. To counter these outbursts, the Angelus Solaris were created as the honor guard to their Primarch. Indeed, the Celestial Suns casted a bright light of hope, but in this grim dark galaxy, even the brightest light will cast a dark shadow. With the aid of the grandfather of pestilence, Nurgle, Tzeentch set his plan forward in order to convert the Celestial Suns into serving him fully. Nurgle invaded both the moon and forge world of Eldia, and within just a few weeks, the entire populace of Eldia was either dead or corrupted by the plagues of Nurgle. The 11th Legion responded to the distress signals sent out by the Forge, and it split its forces during their investigation. The main force landed upon the planet in various locations of interest, while Dante Hueco and Varos of the Dawn's Lance investigated the moon. The events that transpired upon the moon can be seen in Chapter 3. Upon landing on the massive forge of Eldia, the Celestial Suns were assaulted by both the Imperial Guard and the Skitarii, who had fallen to Nurgle's wrath. The sudden shock of having both Imperial weaponry and Skitarii technology being used on the Suns led to many casualties. However, the Celestial Suns quickly recovered, and they began their offensive. Once again, the Suns were shocked when guardsmen were able to brush aside deadly wounds, and some would even ignore the loss of a limb. This unnatural resilience caught the eye of the captain of the Cataphracti Terminator Squad's, Bellicrax. Bellicrax was always fighting in the front lines, and as such, he was a veteran warrior who was always covered in scars. He was prideful, and he thought himself the toughest Marine within the ranks of the Celestial Sons. But when he saw how the infected Skitarii ignored these mortal blows, Bellicrax wanted this power. This obsession of his drove him towards unthinkable acts, such as the consumption of their rotting flesh, and the murder of his own battle brothers in order to keep his actions hidden. With the weapons of the Forge being used against the Space Marines, the corrupted forces of Nurgle claimed many more lives. It was all thanks to the valiant efforts of Vicus Rowan and his sacrifice that the Space Marines were able to breach the Forge. Donning double storm shields, Rowan charged straight through a barrage of fire until he managed to bypass the plague-ridden barricades. Mere moments later, massive explosions began ringing out from the dual plasma eradicator gun emplacements. As the Celestial Sons charged forth into the Forge, Apothecary Zakos found the charred remains of Rowan. As he attempted to extract his gene seed, he noticed that the Iron Sun still lived. With his entire right side missing, Rowan's only hope to continue the fight was to be interred within the sarcophagus of the mighty Dreadnought. The few remaining Adeptus Mechanicus forces sent distress signals directly to Terra. They sent word of the despicable actions being committed by the 11th Legion, the massacre of Eldia's populace, the corruption in alliance with an unknown demonic entity, and plans to assassinate the Emperor. Alec Elric personally entered the command room of the Forge, and he burned the last remaining Skitarii traitors to ash and molten slag. While trying to uncover the cause of the demonic incursion, Elric came across an encrypted message speaking about a secret dragon cult, an organization within the Adeptus Mechanicus that praised a star god by the name of the Void Dragon. This being was being praised as the Omnissiah, and it was secretly being kept beneath the red sands of Mars. But the most heretical thing of all were battle plans to assault Holy Terra by wielding the might of this dragon. The star god would drain the machine spirit from all Imperial technology, rendering it useless, while empowering the Mechanicus' technology. Elric knew that if this were to happen, Terra and the entire Imperium would surely fall. The Primarch quickly sent word to the Emperor of his findings, but the Emperor had already received the false messages of the Skitarii. Primarch Alec Elric and the entirety of the 11th Legion, the Celestial Sons, had been labeled as traitors, and with a heavy heart, the Emperor gave the order to his forces. The Edict of Obliteration had just been enacted. The Celestial Sons began cleansing campaigns all across the world and moon of Eldia, while they awaited a response from the Emperor. But nothing was ever received. Weeks went by, and finally a sign. From the heavens, multiple battle barges of the 11th Legion came crashing down. The skies were blotted out from the numerous warships of the Space Wolves, Sisters of Silence, and Adeptus Custodes. On this day, the Celestial Sun would be forever eclipsed.